Alright, so what I'm going to do here is we're going to look at the Wrestler Creation Suite in the SmackDown Mall, which is under Options. Strange place to put it. Now the game has space for 18 created wrestlers. Now, much like the main wrestlers in the game, you can have up to 4 alternate attires for each wrestler. So we'll just start here at number 1. And we give our wrestler a name. Now, the wrestler we're making is based on a real independent wrestler who's a friend of mine. He hasn't wrestled in about 15 years, I think. But when he did, he went under the name Disillusion, which, yes, he spelled with a Z. It was the 90s. And we're going to make the short name the same as the long name. The short name is what gets used in dialogue during the story portions. I think if you just leave the short name blank, it'll use the longer name, but just to be on the safe side, he doesn't need an alias. Alias would be the part that goes in quotes around someone's name, like Macho Man, Randy Savage, Rowdy, Roddy Piper, that kind of thing. Now picture, you can choose a thumbnail to use for any of your wrestlers, but they're all kind of goofy. Let's go with the Blob. Height, you can get as short as 5 feet and as tall as 7'11". The height differences don't tend to be that pronounced in the game, though. We'll put it at 6 feet. And I'm going to scale him way down to the light heavyweight category because, as I said, we were going to use this guy to win the light heavyweight championship. Plus, Disillusion was a light heavyweight. You can choose any of the various pieces of entrance music to use as your entrance music. Yeah. I got the blue. Okay. There are all of the wrestlers in the game, all of their entrance music, plus 7 original pieces, most of which are not that great. We'll go with that one. Now this is where we get to the real creation part. First, we have to choose exactly how big we want our wrestler to be. We have these generic body types, and then we have some of the more specific body types. Now, I talked before about how the story mode is completely modular. You can put anybody into any role. The character creation is exactly the same. The wrestlers in the game are all made of individual pieces, and the character creation suite is made from those same pieces. So if you really wanted to, you could recreate any of the wrestlers in the game with the character creation models. Obviously that would be a waste of time, but you're creating your characters from the same pieces the designers of the game used to make the wrestlers in the game. That includes the faces. So the faces we have are actually the faces of the wrestlers in the game. But since you can choose different body types and skin tones, it's not always obvious who is supposed to be who. No facial hair. I should probably talk about the character we're making while I'm going through all these decisions. Disillusion started as a very dark, brooding character. That's how my friend developed him when he came up with it, when he was wrestling in his backyard. But once he actually got into the ring, didn't really stay that way. I'm not sure why. But it sort of he sort of developed the character into a more pompous, arrogant, wannabe rock star kind of bad guy, which is why he's got the goofy grin here. But I'm developing him to be like the wrestler he actually was, rather than the one he started out as. We're gonna go with black pants. Now, see, this would be perfect if it wasn't for the bandana. This works. See, later games would let you get a lot, obviously, as games improve, they will let you get a lot more elaborate with your entrance attire. So this is the fighting style menu, where we can choose some customization options for our character. This stance obviously determines how they stand. If you remember, Kurt Angle's stance was a wrestling stance. We're going to go with normal. And his Disillusion is going to leapfrog over the top rope when he gets into the ring. He's going to have light heavyweight style counters. He's very fast. His submission skills are normal. Yes, he can evade an Irish whip. He's going to recover very fast. He's going to normal bleeding. He's going to react to bleeding by getting aggressive. He has normal endurance. He's going to jump to the top turnbuckle. And he has the longest jumping distance. Now, specific weapon, this is when they reach into the audience and pull out a weapon. But we don't want to give him a specific one. And in the parameter menu, we can spend points to increase our character's skills. As you can see, we have enough points to improve everything by 1, but we don't want to do that. We want to make his flying a little more powerful, since he's going to be a high-flying type wrestler. Take one down from kicks and bump that back up into flying. And I want him to be very defensive, very balanced defensively. So we'll leave that there. And, oops. The ally enemy menu, I honestly don't remember having, again, any in-game function. This is like the create a stable that we talked about before. It's here, it's nice to have. If you wanted to give your wrestler a manager, you could put them right there in the accompanied by slot. And that brings us to moves. And moves is where you're going to spend the vast majority of your time while creating a wrestler in No Mercy. You see there are different categories of moves: grappling moves, standing moves, running moves, moves when your opponent is on the ground, moves off the top turnbuckle, moves when your opponent is on the ring apron, moves when you're on the ring apron, Irish whip moves, you have your taunts, and double team moves. And of course, within each one of these categories, there are subcategories. And within each of those subcategories, you have several different kinds of moves. So you see, these are your wrestler has all of these different front weak grapples. And you see has the button combination you would use to execute the move. So if we did a front weak grapple and pushed A, we would club them in the back of the neck. A and then left or right, underhook punch, eye rake, double leg takedown. These are the defaults. But when we go in here, we have all of these moves to choose from. So it's an incredible amount of customization, but of course if you want your wrestler to be just the way you want, it's obviously going to take a very long time. So it just requires considerable patience. The Disillusion was a chop thrower. Love to throw chops. So we're going to make sure to give him lots of chops. I'm going to make that chop as well. So basically, I know that if I hit A after a weak grapple and push in any direction, I'm going to execute a chop. It helps because your wrestler is going to have so many moves. You want to have some kind of pattern. While you're programming these moves in. Otherwise, you're never going to remember where anything is when you're actually executing them during a match. So with my weak grapples, A are going to be striking moves. And I'm going to give Disillusion takedowns and suplexes with B. He really wants to give me that move for some reason. Let's give him a neck breaker. Not that one. No, not that one either. That one. Alright. Actually, I want that to be a hip toss. Okay. Now, with strong grapples, obviously it's the same basic idea. Only now that we're in strong grapples, we can actually get to more powerful moves. Now you see down there in the bottom the power rating of each move. Starts at, I believe F is the lowest, and it goes all the way up to A. So here we can choose our first finisher, the front special move. And again, what we want is something that we can execute several times while our attitude meter is going. Now, when he developed the character, Disillusion used a double arm DDT as a finisher. I don't believe he ever actually ended up using one of those in a real wrestling match. But I want to give him something as similar to that as possible. So let's see if we can find a double arm DDT. See what this is. That's not a double arm DDT. That's not that either. In fact, I think there was a double arm DDT, but it's way down here. See, the moves are sorted by their power. They're sorted into categories. You see, the red ones are only accessible for special moves. And then you have these yellow ones down here. We're looking for the double arm DDT. That's it. He called that the mind game. We're going to list that as a favorite. Favorite moves actually, when you execute them, cause your meter to grow a little bit faster than your regular moves. You see now why I broke this into a separate video. Alright, so from behind, we're gonna want to give him an equally impressive finishing move. We'll scroll all the way up here into the reds. Good old blue thunder bomb. And so these are our reversals. When someone grapples from behind and we counter it, we can choose what move we do. We want to give him something appropriately light heavyweight. Let's give him that. And yeah, same thing for the strong grapples. And hey, we're done with the first category of moves. Down into standing, which again is going to be the same thing. Again, Disillusion loves to throw chops. So I'm going to make all of his weak arm strikes chops. Just throw basic kicks. Alright, so the recovering attack is an attack you make when you are getting up after being on the ground. We're going to go with the high flipping drop kick again. I'm going to make him as jumpy and flippy as possible. So these are his counters. We're going to give him that arm breaker. And this is the special counter punch. This is if you have a full attitude meter and successfully counter their strikes. So if that happens, he'll automatically execute his finishing move. Our kick counter, we want to give him something awesome. Alright. And this is just how we want him to walk. You see different characters. Some characters have walking animations just for them. We'll give him this generic walking animation. He doesn't walk quite so tall. They're running moves. This is obviously where our high flyer should really make his mark. Gonna give him lots of drop kicks. Actually, I want to see if there's something else I can do besides a drop kick there. Ah, the spear. That's what he needs. Okay, our ground moves. This is where we're going to get a lot of submission moves in, as you can see. Not all of them. See, that's a pinfall move. I'm going to leave that where it is. Gonna give him a buffalo sleeper. And leave that on the Mahistar cradle. Now, we can also... there are standing up finishers, and there's also on the ground finishers. One for facing up and one for facing down. And this is just at the head. We have other submission moves to pick when they're on the when they're over by the feet. So lower body submissions. The STF. Disillusion was a big fan of the STF and the Indian Deathlock. In fact, I'm going to make those his finishing moves as well. That brings us to turnbuckle moves. And as you can see, it looks like there's an enormous amount of work to do here. It's not as bad as you think. As this category basically covers every possible thing that could happen in the corner. Turnbuckle attack, this is you when your opponent is in the corner. As I said before, we're going to give Disillusion a bunch of chops. And this is when you're running at them in the corner. Gonna give it another nice big drop kick. And I don't think we've given him a good clothesline yet, so let's make that a clothesline. Make that a favorite. And then in the corner, this is when you get whipped into the corner. How do you want to counter it? He's gonna sling over the opponent. That would make more sense, I think, if they had the dummy model there to show him actually running underneath that jump. Now it looks kind of silly. The Tree of Woe, this is when you put your opponent... Again, there's no model to demonstrate, but this is when your opponent is dangling by his feet upside down in the corner. You can have up to 3 moves there. I'm just going to give him another drop kick. Some more chops, if I can. There we go, hard chop. I honestly don't remember the last time I put an opponent in the Tree of Woe in this game. Couldn't even tell you how to do it if I wanted to. Alright. So the front grapples, this is when your opponent is... These are the grapple moves when your opponent's in the corner. Not as many as you'd think. We're going to give a nice choke with the feet. Definitely the multiple chops. Strong grapples. Let's give him the cradle DDT from the top. This always looks impressive. The super DDT, which doesn't look all that different. And you can actually have another finisher from way up there. Which we're going to make it this interesting variation on the Stone Cold Stunner. And again, we have more grappling moves, this time from behind. Much fewer choices there. You're going to see that on all of these. I'm going to demonstrate his reverse Frankensteiner. Now this is crazy. I doubt anyone outside of Mexico or Japan has ever done that in real life. So these counter grapples, this is, as you can tell, this is what you would do to counter someone trying to come at you from the top rope. And this I find interesting. It lets you pick a back counter grapple, but there's only one choice. Alright, so now flying attacks. So this is, again, you choose what you want to do, and your attack changes depending on what your opponent is doing. To a standing opponent, we're going to give him a nice missile drop kick. To a standing opponent on the outside, I'm going to give him one of these flip attacks. That one. You can have another finishing move to a standing opponent off the top rope, which we're going to make probably not the big chop, that's dumb. We're going to make this diving moonsault to a laying opponent. It's going to need to be another moonsault, except I don't think we can do one. Ah, the Phoenix Splash. Laying opponent to outside. The rolling. That will go with the twisting senton. The laying opponent special. This is yet another finishing move, and we're going to have to go with the 450, which I actually saw him do. Now the turnbuckle inside, this is when your opponent is on the ground in the corner. And finally, for taunting, in the corner. We'll keep it generic. And this is for taunting on the top rope. And hey, look at that. We're halfway done. Actually, from here there are a lot fewer choices. You still see a lot of categories, but there aren't nearly as many choices. Like here, there's 4 different choices to make, but you've only got 2 moves to choose from. We're gonna go with the suplex and the suplex. We don't need a special. We don't need a finisher from the apron, and that one's not a choice at all. So rope inside attack. This is when you're running at the ropes and you want to bounce off the ropes into a move. There's only one move to choose from, the moonsault off the second rope, but we are definitely giving him that because that actually was his finisher, as opposed to the double arm DDT he always wanted to do. So now we have a flying attack to the outside. So this is when your opponent is on the outside, you run to the ropes and execute this move. We're going to make it that, if you can even see it there. Definitely going to give him a suicide dive to run through the ropes. And this is if you want to give them a taunt at the ropes, which we don't. So now we have to choose what Disillusion is going to do from the apron. This is to someone on the inside of the ring. We'll have him pop him with an elbow. And this is to someone trying to grab them from the outside of the ring. We'll just give him a nice kick. Grappling from the apron. Not too many choices here. We'll give him this sunset flip for a weak grapple, and then a strong grapple. We will drop them over the ropes with the guillotine. Again, we don't need to give him a finisher from the apron. Now to counter, we can either have him reverse the suplex by weaseling out of it, or suplex them off the apron to the floor. And that's definitely the more badass choice, so we'll do that. Again, dropping an attack from the apron to the floor. We're going to go with the SIE moonsault. And this is a running across the apron to the floor. Again, I don't know that I've ever actually done this in a match in this game, but now that I know it's an option, I'm going to make sure that I do it. In fact, I'm going to make that one of his favorite moves. So now we have coming off the apron into the ring against a standing opponent, against a laying opponent, and a finishing move if we wanted, but we don't need to. And now once again, taunting from the apron. We'll keep it simple. Irish whip. Now this is when people are running at you. This is after you have Irish whipped them and they're coming at you. Gonna give him a good old chop. And grappled, same thing. When they're coming at you after you've Irish whipped them. Now taunts. You have all of these different ways in which you can taunt. Your taunt changes depending on which direction you move the analog stick. Up. We're going to do this move. No, we're not. We're going to do this move. This is the problem with these numbered ones. Yeah, right there on the butt. That'll work. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do that for all of them. As you see, there's up, left, and right. If you push the analog stick down, everybody's taunt is the same. They just get on one knee and point at their head as if to suggest that they're smarter than you. The special taunt, this is the taunt they do when they unlock their attitude meter. When it goes up to special, when they do this taunt, you know it's time for their finishing move. Not sure where the ducking taunt comes into play. And the celebration taunt is the taunt they do after winning a match, which we're going to make it this one. The entryway taunt, this is what they do when they enter the arena for their entrance. Leave it at that. Double team moves. You can go through here and pick your double team moves. I just leave them alone. They're frankly not that important to me. If I was really trying to get this 100% specific, you could go through these, but double team moves come up so infrequently, especially since we won't be doing any we won't be going after the tag team titles. But that's it. That's how you make a wrestler no mercy. As I said, it's a very intricate process, a very time-consuming process. But now we have a complete wrestler, and soon Disillusion will be trying to win the light heavyweight championships.